こんにちは、リノです。ザ・スタンリー・パラブルっていうゲームをプレイしていきます。
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
スタンリーという男の物語。すごいな。ユニバのあれみたい。スパイダーマンの中みたい。アトラクション待ち中の。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
面白い。ちゃんと番号が振ってあるんだ、ここに。デスクね。どこ行けばいいんだろう。
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
左の方、こっち。でも、本当にこの道でいいのかな。従うか、今。会議室に来た。
There was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
こっちに道が。すごい。
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
なるほど。これはスタンリーさんの物語か。どこ行けばいい？こっち。トイレか。わあ、すごい。
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life.
本が。
Unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
2845だって。ここか。45。
Stanley just sat around, yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad,
ちょっと。
happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
閉まっちゃったよ。びっくりした今。スタジオみたいなとこ来たよ。何これ。閉じ込められた。ここ押せってことかな。でも押しても、動いた。動いた。すげえ。
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
うわ、びっくりした。火花が散ったよな。
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
マインドコントロール施設。
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
すごい、スタンリーさんめっちゃ探検してる。 あ、そっか、一回出ればいいのか。ここじゃなくてこっちだもんね。走れないのかな。これか。おー、なんだこれ。ここで監視してたってことか。すごいな。なるほど。でもプライバシーの侵害とかね、そういった問題にもなるかもしれない。こんな全部監視してたの、こんなに。まあ無理だろうね、一人では。すごいな。でもこんな壁一面に。で、次はこのボタンを押します。
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated?
なんか降りてきた。あ、すげえ。なんだこれ。
No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world?
めちゃめちゃ熱弁してる。
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in,
オフラインって書いてる。
this machinery would never again
ネット繋がってない。
exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
マインドコントロールズ、アイドル。なんかプログラミング言語っぽいけど、わかんねえ。インプットって書いてる。違うか、言語じゃないか。
Oh, Stanley, you didn't just activate the controls, did you? After they kept you enslaved all these years, you go and you try to take control of the machine for yourself. Is that what you wanted? Control? Oh, Stanley, I applaud your effort, I really do. But you need to understand, there's only so much that machine can do. You were supposed to let it go.
ごめんごめん。なんか変なとこ押しちゃった。
If you want to throw my story off track,
すいません。
you're going to have to do much better than that.
やばいやばい。
You already don't have nearly the power you think you do. For example, and I believe you'll find this pertinent, Stanley suddenly realized he had just initiated the network's emergency detonation system. In the event that this machine is activated without proper DNA identification,
やばいやばいやばい。
detonators are set
死
to
ぬ。
explode, eliminating the entire complex. How long until detonation then? Let's say,
あ、出れない。
Ah, now this is making things a little more fun, isn't it, Stanley? It's your time to shine. You are the star. It's your story now. Shape it to your heart's desires. Oh, this is much better than what I had in mind.
何も良くないでしょう。
So little time left to enjoy it. Mere moments until the bomb goes off. But what precious moments each one of them is.
あ、出れる。
Time to talk about you, about me, where we're going, what all this means. I barely know where to start. What's that? You'd like to know where your co-workers are? A moment of solace before you're obliterated? All right, I'm in a good mood. You're gonna die. I'll tell you exactly what happened to them. I erased them. I turned off the machine. I set you free. Of course, that was merely in this instance of the story. Sometimes when I tell it, I simply let you sit there in your office forever, pushing buttons endlessly and then dying alone. Other times, I let the office sink into the ground, swallowing everyone inside, or I let it burn to a crisp. I have to say this though, this version of events has been rather
あ、
amusing.
ここに
Watching you try to make sense of everything and take back the control wrested away from you, it's quite rich. I almost hate to see it go. But I'm sure whatever I come up with on the next go
何これ
will be even better.
何これ
My goodness, only 34 seconds left. But I'm enjoying this so much. You know what? To hell with it. I'm going to put some extra time on the clock right now.
よくわかんないんだけど、何これ
These are precious additional seconds, Stan. Time doesn't grow on trees. Oh dear me, what's the matter, Stanley? Is it that you have no idea where you're going or what you're supposed to be doing right now? Or did you just assume when you saw that timer that something in this room was capable of turning it off? I mean, look at you. Running from button to button.
バレてるバレてる
Clicking on every little thing in this room. These numbered buttons. No, these colored ones. Or maybe this big red button. Or this door. Everything, anything. Something here will save me. Why would you think that, Stanley? That this video game can be beaten? Won? Solved? Do you have any idea what your purpose in this place is? Stanley, you're in for quite a disappointment.
人間の心理をもてあそんでんのかこれ
That timer isn't a catalyst to keep the action moving along.
な
It's just
あ
seconds
ー
to
ごめん
get away to your goal. You're only still playing instead
どう
of
しようどうしようどうしよ
watching a cutscene because I want to watch you for every moment that you're
うまずいまずいまずい
to see you made humble. This is not a challenge.
なんかないの
Tragedy. You wanted to control this world, that's fine. But I'm going to destroy it first, so you can't. Take a look at the clock, Stanley. That's 30 seconds you have left to struggle.
あ、やばい
30 seconds until a
ミルク飲めないかな
no ending.
最後にミルクだけも
Being blown to pieces. When you cling desperately to your
まずい死ぬ
or
死
when you
ぬ
let it go peacefully.
どうしよう
Another choice.
とりあえず諦めずにボタンを押し続けることしかできない何これ何これ何これ何これ
All a part of the joke. And believe me, I will be laughing at every
あ
second
まずい
of
死
your
ぬ
inevitable life from the
やばい揺れてる揺れてる揺れてる
until the moment I say happily ever after.
うわうわ何が起きたんだろう一体あら戻ってるまた同じ
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
伝言よくわからないなこれ次こっちに行けばいいのかなでも同じ方向またこっちに行くんだあえてそっち行ってもありだけどね
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
あ、なるほど違う選択肢を選ばないとまた同じことになっちゃうんだ
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he left his post during work hours. He might be fired.
自分で作ってくんだ
And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy.
あ、こっ
And
ち
then
か
something occurred to Stanley.
何やってん
Maybe,
だ
he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all. None of it made any logical sense.
ちょっと待って同じとこぐるぐるしちゃってる
As Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down?
待って
Why did doors close automatically
もう
behind him?
行く場所がないぞ
And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar.
これなんか車使えないのかなこれ
No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange.
コンビニ
This
か
can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming! He yelled. This is all a dream. Oh,
めっちゃナレーションが楽しそうなんだけど
to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical star field.
それすげえな、話。
It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he
なん
had
か暗くなったよ。
How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest
オー
question
ブ
of
が
all
待ってる。
entered
ホ
Stanley's
タル的な、わかんない
One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay. Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real.
え、何
Someone tell me I am real. I must be real.
ち
I must be
何
real.
何
But hear my voice. Who am I? Who am I?
怖い怖い怖い怖い。え
This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
マリエラ。
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
すごい映画見てる気分だった。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
あーそっか。 道は一つじゃないから、別の道行ってもいいんだよね。鍵なんかでも開くわけじゃないだろうし。開かないんだ、やっぱ。なんでこんなちょっと荒れてんだろうね。
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well.
一回ちょっと違う道も行ってみる。
The employee lounge first, just to admire it. Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in.
ああ、海外の自販機ってこんなんなんかな。すごいなこれ。ドルが書かれてる。
Really, really worth it being here in the room. A room so utterly captivating that even though all your co-workers have but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
こっち。
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
ちょっとどういうことかわかんない。いろいろ言ってみようかな。会議室に戻ってきた。
Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
また同じなんじゃないこれもしかして。どうしよう。え、ああ、そっか。こっちは開くんだ、確か。なんか書いてる。おはようって言ってんのかな。こっちも開くんだ。わ、すげえ。散らばってる。下半分しかない。あれ戻ってきた。同じ場所だよね、確か。
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud to nobody. He began wildly tearing through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation. But his attention was caught by a keypad behind the boss's desk. What could its purpose be? In fact, this keypad guarded the terrible secret that lay buried below his feet. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret pin number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
適当に押してみよう。ダメか。
Stanley just sat around twiddling his, yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
結局ここになるんだ。別の道探せるはずなんだけどな。なんかないんかな。ないか。やっぱここ行くしかないのかな。ここしか押せないもんね。 またあの爆発か。通ったんだよな。
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
いや、逃げる用の道もあるしな。
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his
飛
vice.
翔の死？どういうこと？
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
ちょっと引き返したいんだけど、普通に。それ言われたら。一回引き返すか。もし同じだったら、この方向にまた来る。こうやって一回引き返して。
But of course, Stanley thought better of it and realized he simply had too much to live for.
行ったんだけどな、ここ。
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
失礼します。入っちゃおうか。これだ、多分。これをして、防犯カメラの映像を。
Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers, the lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom.
ね、これ捕まってたってこと？よくわかんないんだけど。なんでこんな監視されてるのかな？もう未来の話か、これは。難しいね。
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe it couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world?
もしかしたら変わってんのかもしれないしね。爆弾じゃないのかも。
Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
あ、そっか。ここの選択肢見余ったん僕だもんね。オフにしたらいいんだ、一回。うわ、びっくりした。大丈夫かな。これいいんだよね。え、何も見えない。
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved.
すげえ、光が見えてきた。
Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him. For it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know.
すごいな、眩しいな。
The only thing worth Stanley stepped.
暗闇からのさ、こう光って眩しいよね。うわ、綺麗な場所来たよ。
The feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
なんか来てる。実績かなんかゲットしたよ。英語で書かれてて読めない。あれまた？あ、でも違うルートか。待って待って。何も変わっちゃいないんだけど。なんか全然ダメじゃん。
Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way.
物事進展しないよね。なんで、ちょっとくらい変わってもいいはずなのに。こういうものなのかな。
When Stanley came to a set of two open windows, he entered the door on his left.
もうこれはもう結局会議室行っちゃうならこっちしかないもんね。
Yet there was not a single person here either.
なんか
Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
何をしてるんだろうここは。難しいことしてるみたい。統計情報みたいな集めてる。何書いてるのか全然わかんない。円グラフ作ってなんかしてる。お、なんだここ。
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
その通りになるんだけど本当に。
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
こっち、開かないか。どっか行けないのかな。ここトイレだよね、確か。一回閉めようか。こっちは確かなんか、あれだ。下行ってみる、相手。場所は全く同じなんだよね。開かなくなってる。変わんないんだよね、そんな。
The moment he entered his manager's office, Stanley froze in his tracks. Not a living soul anywhere. Could he really be all alone? This was too much for Stanley to take, too much for any man to take. He fell to his knees, bursting into half moans, half sobs, the guttural retching of life from a man denied any hope, any reason to keep going. Here on the floor he lay prone, paralyzed by fear for nearly a full hour. But when at last he began to move about and survey the situation, he found a keypad behind the boss's desk. What could it mean? Was it a sign of hope for Stanley's future? Alas, it was not. For although this keypad guarded the terrible secret of Stanley's past, it had been assigned a 4-digit code so devious and so random that no man could ever hope to guess it.
それ数字か。別に数字ないのかな、なんか。
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845.
そうだよ、普通。絶対に押させようとしてる、これ。なんか、諦めて押せってことかな。別の道行きたいんだけど。2845はわかるんだけど。無理だな。何それ。どういうこと？え？押さなくてよかったの？いや、よくわかったね。自分でこれ探して一見のやつかな。この人が言ったことでは別のことをするってこと。難しいなこれ。だってまた行くことになるんだよね。まあ難しいな。こっち行ってみるか、次。ちょっと見てみる。地上の終わりっていうの。いや、行く。進む。ガスかこれ。ガスが待ってんのかな。だからってことわかんないけど。何ここ。うわっ。
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture.
なるほど。助けて。怖い。やばい。潰される。まずい。ちょ、待って。なんかどっか登れないのこれ。やばい。来る。
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated, as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
なかなかいいこと言ってない。いや、生きてない？
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
うわぁ、すんげえ宮殿みたいなとこ来たよ。
Death becomes meaningless, making life the same.
なんだこれ。
Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
そうなん？死んでたん？冒頭部分のテンポが重要で、この廊下を動かしたり変更したりして、プレイ側はいいタイミング2つのドアへたどり着くようにしています。すげえ、頭いいよね。すごいな。 オフィスレイアウトとか書いてる。これちゃんと作ってみたいだよ、こういうアマチュアで。再現してくれてる。ゲームの中にまで。これが、あれか。オフィスか。クレジットもう先に書いてる。優秀なゲーム見たことないけど。待って。ちょっと待って。作業中に誰かゲームしなかった今。トランプ。怒られちゃう。ごめん、ごめん、全部消しちゃった。これはあれだ。ごめん、なんか押しちゃダメだと思うけど。ちょっと待って。ちょっとだけ探索させて。みんなも、ね、見てこうね。このゲームを通してボタンを押した時に使われたサウンドセレクションです。各サウンドはシンセサイザーの音色とキーボードのストロークをミックスして作られています。ストローク、初めて聞いた。そんなのがあるんだ。シンセサイザーはなんか知ってるけど、よくね、なんかその、音楽作る時とかに使われてる音だよね。大雑把だけど。これがあれか、ドアか。すげえ。こっからどこに行けばいいのか自分で決めたらいいと。どうしよう。こっち行くか。左側の自分から見て。すげえ。うわぁ。すごいね、こう。マジ観光しに来た人みたいになってんだけど。高専地帯。なるほどね。ここでね、隠れてね。なかなかリアルだよね。いやー、結構かかったんだろうね、こういうゲーム作るにも。プログラミング打ち込んでさ。大変だよね。ナレーターのメールって書いてるけどさ、全然わかんない。何のカウントだろう、これは。電話がなんのかな。そういうのがあるんだ。なるほど。なんか、めちゃめちゃ、こういう手伝い的なこと好きな人は、ハマんのかもしれない。これ難しいの無理だから。ゼンティングレバー。こちらのレバーはもともとゼンティングの一部でした。プレイヤーはレバーを引き、慣れたことの色のレバーを引いたのか説明します。なんかトム・ジェリのあれ、なんか、ジェリーが引っ掛けられたのがネズミ捕りみたいな。似てるような気が。スケープメニュー。ただただすごいな。こういうのを作り上げてたんだ。カウントダウンデスク。うわ、なんだ。カウントダウンデスクやばいな、これ。カウントダウンするだけのものってこと？これ、あれ。すぐ終わるんだけど。 これはいけないか、下に。いけんのかなと思って。うん。アトラクションみたいだね、なんか。ここは行き止まり的な感じで。あ、行き止まりだ。そっか、じゃあ一通り見終わったってことでいいのか、これは。見終わったらじゃあ。
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free.
あ、
Can you see?
まずい。
Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen.
なんかまずいのおっしゃったかな。
But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice.
何パソコン切れってこと？
Choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let time.
ちょっと、パソコン切らないといけなかった？あ、違う、間違えた。やり直しかね、これは。なるほどね。パソコンを切る。
Stanley had never seen the office this brightly lit. Was it a sign of something? He hoped it was. He hoped very much that it was.
なるほど。やっぱ押さないといけなかったんや、あそこで。
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
次はじゃあエスケープボタンを押してみたらいいんだ。
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Hoping he might coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life.
間違えた。
What did it mean, he wondered?
間違えた、ごめん。
For answers, he began turning the room over, looking for
間違えた、まだ。
that might unravel the situation, until at last he discovered a keypad behind the boss's desk. But alas,
これだ。
Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy. So he relaxed for a few moments with some calming new age music.
ちょっと待って、なんか音楽流れてきたんだけど。
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
だからここで一回あれか。キーボードも操作するボタン、エスケープボタンを押して、で止めろってことか、次は。
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
行こ
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was
ここで間違えたんだよね。
that in this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
潰されるからってことだよね。
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
そう、これが来るんだよね。
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief
あ、一回待った方がいいのか。
farewell, Stanley.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly. And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish? When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death
次は
becomes meaningless, making life the same.
こっちに行ってみる。
Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
別の道もあったんだよね。なにこれ。
When Stanley came to the lift, he traveled upward to the power source at the top of the facility to end this injustice forever.
何もなかった。そうだ、これで見終わった後になんかその暗いとこ行くんだよね。言ってんだよな。やっぱここしかないんだ。
These two, how they wish to destroy one another, how they wish to control one another, how they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path.
こうしたらいいんかな。間違いかな。わかんない。
Stanley knew the office layout like the back of his hand. It was only a matter of time before he found the others, wherever they were. Just a matter of time.
変わってんのかな、ちょっとは。ちょっとはでもナレーション変わってるよね。どうだろうか。不安になってきたな、逆に。
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss.
やっぱなんか見逃してんだよな。
Stanley thought, how amusing they'll find it. Oh, won't we all just laugh and laugh at the time I thought everyone had gone missing.
難しいなこのゲーム、よくわかんない。あそこ空いてるし。開くわけじゃないしな。何これ。インポットにしよう。これはどういう意味？なんだろう。何作ってる会社これ。ドアが2つある。どこか1つ開いてもおかしくないはず。なんて開かない。ガチャガチャしても全然開かない。ああ、どうしよう、こっち行こうか。
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first,
開かない開か
just
な
to
い。
admire it.
頑張って開けようとしてるけど。これ何の部屋？不気味な部屋。じゃあ。
Wow. Yes, this room. What a but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
なんかなんかちょっと別の道が。
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
あれか。あれ無視しよう。無視できない。無視できない。
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Oh no, no, not again. I won't be part of this. I'm not going to encourage you. I'm not going to say anything at all. I'm just going to be patient and wait for you to finish whatever it is you enjoy doing so much in this room. Please take your time. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Just ちょっと待って。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could
え？
it mean?
何これ？
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
なんか配置変わってんだけど、どういうことこれ？あれ？全然わけわかんない。
Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way.
どこここ？何これ何これ？意味わかんない。こんなのなかったよね今まで。急にこれがなんかどういうこと？わからん。
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
なんだあれ。
The lounge was sublime, a work of art.
とりあえず下降りるしかないんかな。
Stanley took the first open door on his left.
ここ降りるしかないよね。やっぱここ降りるしかないんだよ。難しいな。このゲームむちゃくちゃ難しい。なんだここ。
From here, it's Oh no, no, it's to the right. My mistake.
右？待って、本当に右なの？もうこのゲーム全然わかんない。右かどうかも。え、違うの？やめてくれよ。オッケー。待つよ、待つよ。何を探してんだろうか。ライト、レフト、どっち？頑張って。こっち？オッケー、行こうか。ね、これ。なんか、大丈夫？やばそうなとこ来たけど。バイオハザードみたいな。怖っ。あれ？見ちゃったけど大丈夫これ？ガン見しちゃったよこれ。目に焼き付けとくからさ。何消してんの
？How about rather than waste my time trying to salvage this nonsense, we'll just restart the game from the beginning. And this time, suppose we don't wander so far off track, Okay, from the top.
勝手に頭からになった。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
伝言を見落としたっていうのがわかんないんだよな。伝言を見落とした。まあもう行くしかないか、そのまま。だって別に開く気配ないしな、全部。見てきた中では。おお、なんだ？え
？No, I restarted. I swear I definitely restarted the game over, completely fresh. Everything should be. Oh, did something change?
ドアがいっぱいありますけど。
Change anything when we were back in that room with all the monitors? Did you move the story somewhere or? Hold on.
そんなことしないよ。
I'm asking you. I'm the one who wrote the story. It was right here just a minute ago. I know for sure that it's here somewhere. Okay then, it's an adventure. Come, Stanley. Let's find the story.
ちょっと待って、入り組んしすぎて全然わかんないんだけど。何ここ？正しいルートがわからんけど、どこ行ったらいいだろう。
I'll say it. This is the worst adventure I've ever been on. I can promise you there definitely was a story here before. Do we need to restart the game again? Well, I find it unlikely that we'll ever progress by starting over and over again, but it's got to be better than this. Okay, let's give it a shot.
やるの？また始まった。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
ちょっと待って。壁、ドアもなくなってんやん。
Why don't we go back the other direction and see if we missed anything?
開けてくれんのかな？見落とすか。どれ見落としてんだ？どっか一つ、それだったら開けてくれるドア、開けてくれるっていうか、開いてるドアが一つあるかもしれないよね。出てきなさいみたいな感じで開けていこう。
Aha! I knew we'd miss something. The story. Here it comes.
これがストーリーなんだ。
No, wait. Never mind. Not the story. Okay, let's head back the other way and retrace our steps.
足取り出てくるのかな？あれ？お化け屋敷に来たんだけど。
Now this Well, I'll be honest, I don't recognize this place at all. Is this the story? I don't think so. I can't quite recall, but I believe my story took place in an office building. Is that correct?
ここ
Do you remember, Stanley? Well, do you know what? Since I've completely forgotten what we were supposed to be doing, how about this? You win! Congratulations! I know you put in a lot of
勝ったみたいだよ。
work, but it really paid off. So, good job.
勝ったんだ。
Oh, no. No, I don't feel right about this at all. We both know you didn't put in any actual work for that win. Some people win fair and square, and this was not one of those situations. Okay? I'm getting weirded out by whatever this place is. I don't care what might happen this time. I have to restart.
またリスタートすんの？そう。
All right. I've got a solution.
すげえ。
This time, to make sure we don't get lost, I've
これは助か
employed
る。
the help of the Stanley Parable Adventure Line.
リードしてくれるの？
The line. How simple is that?
でもこれ
The line knows where
ダメなんじゃない
the
の？
story is.
沿っていくだけっていうの
It's
も。
over in this direction. Onward, Stanley, to destiny. Though, here's a thought. Wouldn't wherever we end up be our destination, even if there's no story there? Or to put it another way, is the story of no destination still a story?
別の道を進めていることを。
Moving forward, are we implying a journey such that a destination is inevitably conjured into being via the very manifestation of the nature
こ
of
うどうやって
Whoa.
こうさ、スパイダーマンじゃない？
Weird back there? Well, I'd like to apologize. Not sure where I was
お
going.
なんかやばいことになってんだけど大丈夫これ？
I think what we need right now is a bit of music to lighten the mood.
ちょっと待って。逆に焦るんだけど。この戦闘に進んでたらちょっと意味のないとこぐるぐるしてんだけど。
Cut the music. Go back and look at that fern. Wait, what? We're back at the office? No. Line, you do know we're looking for the Stanley Parable, right? The story? Is any of this ringing a bell? Oh, no, not again. Line, how could you have done this to us? And after we trusted you, after everything we've been through, you... Oh, I can't take this anymore. To hell with it. Restart.
また同じ場所戻ってきちゃったよ。
You know what, Stanley? I say forget the adventure line. What's it ever done for us? We're intelligent people, right? Why can't we make up our own story? Something exciting, daring, mysterious. Ooh, this all sounds perfectly doable. Why don't we simply start wandering in, well, I don't know. How about this direction?
あ、別の道を行くってこと？
Now, yes, this is exciting. Just me and Stanley forging a new path, a new story. Well, it could be anything. What do you want our story to be? Go wild. Use your imagination.
やっぱね、急に爆発してドーンともうなんかその草原が見えるみたいな、もうそういう場所で探検したんや。やっぱこういうね、狭い空間に一回爆発させた方がいいかも。ぐるぐるしないかこれは思ったけど。こっちか。こうか。あれ戻ってきちゃった。あ、違う。道間違えてただけか。あれこうだよね、確か。こう行って、こう行って、こう行って、こう行って。
Oh, no, not you again. Stanley, I'd also like to veto the line from having any role in our awesome new story. No lines or monitor rooms. Just don't acknowledge it. You should be fine.
だから存在してないことにしたらいいってことだよね、これ。いや うわー、なんか
A choice. We get to make a decision. From here, the story is in our control.
どこに
How
行こ
important we mustn't squander the opportunity. In fact, I believe I need a minute to think here. Just walk in circles for a minute. Okay, so I know that each door has
何これ
which means that somewhere
ハンカチ落とし思い出したんだけど
they're trying to go, there must be a reverse door that leads here. And that in turn means that our destination corresponds with the counter-inverted reverse door's origin. So starting from the right, let us ask, will taking the right door lead us to where we're going? And since the answer is clearly yes, then by all accounts, the door on the right is the correct one.
開けてくれ
Victory for logic. Come, Stanley. Our destiny awaits. Oh, hold up. What's this?
もうやばいぞこれ
The confusion ending. You're telling
どう
me
したらいいこれ
that's what this is? It's all one giant ending? And we're
ジャイアン
supposed
に
to
見えた
restart the game eight times? That's really how all this goes? It's all determined?
プログラミングのあれこれもしかして
So
命
now,
令か
according to the schedule, I restart again.
やばいじゃん
And what? Am I just supposed to forget? Well, what
なん
if
か
I
おかしい
do
おかしい
forget? My mind goes blank simply because it's written here on this thing wall. Well, who consulted me? Why don't I get to decide? Why don't I get a say in all of this? Is it really? No, it can't be. I don't want it to be. I don't want the game to keep restarting. I don't want to forget what's going on. I don't want to be trapped like this. I won't restart the game. I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't do it. And the timer stopped? Does that mean, did we do it? Did we break the cycle? The, whatever it is that made this schedule? How would we even know? Will someone come us?
怖いんだけど
Something happened.
誰が来んの
So, okay.
座れないし
I guess now we just wait. You know, I suppose in some way that this is a kind of story. Wouldn't you agree? I'm not quite sure if we're in the destination or the journey, though they're always saying that life is about the journey and not the destination. So I hope that's where we are right now. We'll find out, won't we? Eventually. Well, in the meantime, if you...
何今の電話が鳴ってるどここれだ
Thank you for contacting the Future Happiness Foundation. We are confirming your shipment of 1,327 cardboard boxes to your place of work. Can you verify that this is correct? Excellent. Your order will arrive shortly. Thank you again for contacting the Future Happiness Foundation.
誰か英語聞き取れる人いない何言ってるのか全然分かんなかった今なんて言ったんだろうナレーションが消えたどうしたらいいとりあえず進もうかなあれこんな道あったっけ
Oh, new content? What does that mean, new content?
あれなんか変なとこ来ちゃったなんこれ
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers.
へえ
After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022 with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home computers.
素晴らしすぎるなこのゲームでも
The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over. Please step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Oh, well, this sounds delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content. Okay,
新コンテンツ来た。
nothing special yet, but I'm sure it's just the beginning of a mesmerizing adventure.
わあ、すごい。
Is it broken? What's going on here? Should we do...
閉じ込められた。助けて。
All right, finally, at long last, it's on to the new content. I've never been more ready. Let's do it.
ナレーション聞くだけでめっちゃワクワクしてくるんだけど。
I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if Oh, okay. Let's see the content. Give me the content, Stanley. All right, let's see it's...
ジャンプしろってことか？しんどい。コンテンツしんどいよ、これ。しんどい、何これ。ジャンプしすぎのダメってそういう感じの。終わったんだけど、どういうこと？あれ？何これ？
Is that it? Surely that's not all the new content. There has to be something else, right? やばい、新コンテンツがしょぼすぎる。乗るか。Goodness, another elevator. Stanley, I have to say, initial impressions of this game are not positive. It's just elevators and jumping. Is this what passes for exciting new content? If this is new content, then I could just read you the whole dictionary. There's 20 hours of new content right there. Hell, I could count to 30 trillion. You could put that on the box. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, now with over 1,000 hours of new content. And if... Oh, wait. There's more. Very good. Yes. I knew there had to be something else. Let's see it. I'm ready for whatever it is. That's it? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You should stand there.
Thank you for enjoying. 遊んでくれてありがとう。新コンテンツを。それだけ。ふざけて。
For no reason other than to make an easy dollar. And don't get me started on the level of craftsmanship that's gone into it. In fact, I'm looking right now at the game's achievements, and it's hard to believe one of them actually says, "Test achievement, please ignore." What quality assurance department signed off on this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're still with me,
新コンテンツ文字とジャンプだけ。
and we'll try to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills, no gimmicks. Just you and me having a great time together like always. What do you say, friend?
したいな。本当のスタンリーパラボルか。これか？まあなんか雰囲気が変わってるよね、結構。
Stanley,
何これ？
come over here. In the vent. I want to show you something.
すごい。通気口の中まで。こんなワクワクすることできるんだ。
Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it.
おお
Just our little secret.
なんだこれ
I call it the memory zone.
メモリーゾ
I've
ーン
been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC. You see,
うわ
doesn't
す
the memory
ごっ
zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was
何これ
before it was sullied with a cheap re-release?
めっ
Remember
ちゃ
back
綺麗なんだけ
in
ど
October of 2013 when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then, it all... And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable.
温
Like
泉
the
だ
stunning triumph of games journalism. 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote,
めっちゃ実装してるわ
games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art. Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created. Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them, and now it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content.
あ、開いた下まであるあ、でも入れないみたいだねあー、メンテナンス施設だからかメンテナンス施設かそっかうわすげえなんかいろんなねものがすごい飾ってある
Here's another moving passage, this time from GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. It just needed to be left alone. To spend the rest of time collecting
これが点数か
the hallowed hall of beloved video game memories.
なるほどこれは時間かかるよね作るにしても空いてるけど通れないそこ行きたいけど通れないんだよじゃあここで
These were simpler times, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back to have it all over again.
あ、空いてる空いてる
Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before.
失礼します
What's this? What's down here?
わあなんだここすごいな
Oh no. Oh God, no. Stanley, it's a collection of reviews from Steam, the online video game distributor. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here. Surely these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they?
ああやっぱりバッドエンドの数ってことかこれそれを表現してんだこれで
Honestly, I could not be bothered to play
バッドエ
this
ン
game
ドと
to
か
full
グッド
completion.
あグッドボタンもあるんだ
Obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining. Unfunny.
でも
I'm
も
trying
し
to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable, but the game is already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them.
これはあれか評価が積み重なった結果ってそうだね良くない評価が積み重なっちゃってこうなっちゃったみたいなうわちょっと待ってなんか降ってきた
Okay, let's see what this one says. While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley, I'm not preachy, am I? You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness. This is actually quite shocking for me. Well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well, I always thought it did, but maybe it wasn't. Oh dear. What an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks are my otherwise unimpeachable track record. I feel like a failure. Like I let these people down. Perhaps the Stanley Parable isn't quite as sterling as I always remembered.
あ、こっちが。すごいね、グラウンドみたいなところばっか。そこにも低評価が。
What's this one got to say? You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's
あ、やばいやばいやばい。なんか出てきた。
I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall have.
なるほど。スキップボタンを入れてくれるんだ。
And here it is. Go ahead. Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary verbal flourishes. Well there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption, it's right at your fingertips to go poof, and it's all... Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes? Stanley!
スキップばっかしてる。
Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there.
あ、これ時間も進むん
I
だ
don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really, truly...
押してみよう。
Oh, Stanley, you're back.
ちょっとずつ慣れた弱々しくなってんだけど、声が。
Stanley, I think it's been a week or 2 weeks. I've been sitting here all that time, just sitting here.
スキップボタン恐ろしいんだけど。でもまああるから押すしかないんだよ。ごめんなさい。
Oh, hello, it's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything.
沈黙が走ってる今。ナレーターが。もうちょっと押してみるか。なんだろう。今何時だ？
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, enter.
ちょっと待って。何も起きないね。なんでだろう。壊れてもいいはずなんだけど、時間進んでたら。やばい、ナレーター壊れちゃったよ。永遠と同じ発言をしている。あれ、スキープウォーターがもう使えなくなってる。あ、大丈夫か。うわ、壊れてる。相当な時間が経ったみたい。何年後か知らんけど、外の景色が全くわからん。光が見えてきた、光が。ちょっと光が見えてきた。シュー。スキーボタン押してみようか。こんまじゃ上に行けない。うわ、すげえ。うわ、なんか、 森が生えてる。草木とか。すんご。絡みついてる。さあさあさあさあさあさあ。もう一個。押してみよう。なんか怖くなった。ちょっと待って、もう一回スキップボタン押してみますと。待って、音すらも聞こえなかった。変な音聞こえんだけど。怖っ。うわ、やばい、スキップボタンがなんか倒れてる。外で出てみる。うわ、砂漠じゃん、ここ。どうすんだろう。一回戻るか。使えるかどうか確認して。これやばくない？食べ物だって持ってないじゃん。うわー、すごいな。動物も人もどこにもいない。見当たらない。あ、また戻ってきた。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
また同じように戻ってしまった。あ、入魂出たのここで終わりなんだ。
Notice my sign. Yes, I have something very exciting to show you. 'You see, Stanley, I've been reflecting on the Stanley parable and about how roundly disappointing this ultra deluxe version has turned out to be. The original Stanley parable was a landmark, and any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this ultra deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further. Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever the Stanley Parable 2.
おお。これが新コンテンツになるんだ。
Yes, you see, isn't this far superior to a measly re-release with a few minor additions? Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully fledged sequel. An entirely new experience, built from the ground up. Why, there are so many possibilities. It could go in so many different directions. This is what fans have truly been asking for.
さすがだな、これ。作り込みがすごいわ、これ。
To be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it. I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of concepts,
すげえ。
that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. It'll all work itself out. Game development is much more of a fuzzy magic than anything scientific.
あれ、ちょっと言ってない。ちょっと登ってみるか。うわ、すごっ。新機能。影状まだ治んない。QR コード読み取れるんだ、これ。あとで読み取ろうかな。誰だこの人は。スタッフか。ここも、うわーすごい。フリーニューイージーアクティブイベントって書いてる。これ、閉まってんじゃん。あ、じゃあこっちから行けってことか。あ、ここでなんか遊べるってこと？
Now, here's something special. You remember that broken test achievement that got left in the game on accident? Well, I'm developing a technology to simply give you the achievement. Yes. You see, you'll come to this lever, and when you pull it, the achievement will be given to you. It's as simple as that.
あ、これか。
Okay, perhaps I should have clarified. This is technology that will exist. Right now,
壊れ
the
てんじゃんこれ。
achievement is still fully broken. I'm not a wizard, Stan, but I guarantee it will be fixed in the sequel to at last satisfy the hordes of ravenous fans all over the world who have been uproariously demanding this feature. Gamers, we hear you, and I promise it will happen.
なんだよこれ。普通のプリンターより使えないじゃん。なんだよこれ。バカでっかい機械なのにレバー動かないって。やばいでしょこれ。楽しいのかな思ったら全くやった。広告良かっただけに釣られちゃったな。
What else? What other exhibits haven't we seen yet?
これは何だろう。何これ。
Ah, collectibles. Now it's a real video game. In the Stanley Parable 2, you'll run around gathering up these miniature Stanley figurines. And what's truly innovative is that there will be no reward for collecting all of them. I don't want to stifle the intrinsic joy of watching a number go up. You simply collect all of them, and then you move the hell on with your unremarkable life.
あれ見えないんだけど、どこ帰れないかなこれ。もういいかな。あーでもちょっとずつ近寄ってんのかこれ。なんだこれ。何これ。こう周りの囲ってるあれ怖いんだけど、地獄の番人みたい。ちょっと帰ろうか。ちょっとよくわかんないこれ。帰ってるこれ。ちょっと待って、なんかゲットしたんやけど。あ、これゲットしないと見えないのかな周りが。あ、帰れる。あ、やっと帰れた。
God, it really is the worst when you collect everything in a video game and then they give you a big fancy reward for it. Absolutely. Calling it the Stanley Parable 2 is just so much catchier than Ultra Deluxe, don't you think? Ultra Deluxe? What does it even mean? But the Stanley Parable 2. Now,
どっちでも大丈夫なんだけど。
Stanley, this is fairly awkward. I hate to do this, but before you leave, you really should go to the bucket exhibit. You see, there's a surprise I was going to spring on you later, and it involves the bucket. And I really do hate to break the illusion, but it's important that you go see the bucket, okay?
バケツ？
All right, I'll get out of your hair now.
何？あれ？どかしてくれるのかな？邪魔しませんって言ってるかな。あ、ほら、やっぱり。これ何だったのあれは。妨害されたあれは。レンガ。
No? You're just going to ignore my advice? Fine. No fun new content for you then. You're the one who spent money on this game.
何これ？
What do you think? Do you like all of the new features? Yes, I know it's not exactly clear yet how exactly these features will come together as one single coherent video game, but I can feel it in my soul. It's going to work. There's definitely a good game in there somewhere. Say, let's do an experiment. I'll arrange these new features together, and we'll see whether or not it coheres into a meaningful gameplay experience.
座れないのかな。
Okay. Are you ready?
確か。
Here it is. I give you the Stanley Parable 2. Well, I mean, there's potential here, right? It's
白けだな、これ。
Okay, never mind. Hold on. Let me do a different arrangement. Okay, yes, this is much better. Oh. Here we go. Version 2. Who am I kidding, Stanley?
これはこれで
Coherent video game at all. It's a lot of gags.
微妙だ
I
な。
very much enjoy creating gags, but they don't add up to anything.
他にはバージ
I
ョン。
wanted more than anything to create a sequel that would capture all the magic of the first game. I wanted fans to love it. No matter how good these gags are, they won't stand on their own. They would need the structure and the gameplay of the original. Wait, maybe that's it. I can take the original Stanley Parable and simply, well, insert a few of my new features into it. Tastefully, of course. With respect.
見せながら作っていくんかな。
And integrity of the original game. Would it possibly work? I suppose it could, but it would need a really, really tremendous title screen. A title screen that says with bold and uncompromising conviction, "This is the Stanley Parable 2." Let me see if I can whip something up. All right, perfect. Go ahead. Take a look.
すごっ。本当に作ったんだ。
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-whipping, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for his job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. As he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
ストーリーはやっぱまた一緒に戻っちゃったんだ。もう一回行くんかな、ここ。
You see, Stanley, I've been reflecting on the Stanley Parable and about how roundly disappointing this ultra-deluxe version has turned out to be. The original Stanley Parable was a landmark, and any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this ultra-deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further. Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever, the Stanley Parable 2. Yes, you see. See, isn't this far superior to a measly re-release with a few minor additions? Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully fledged sequel. An entirely new experience, built from the ground up. Why, there are so many possibilities. It could go in so many different directions. This is what fans have truly been asking for. Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it. I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of interesting concepts, that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. It'll all work itself out. Game development is much more of a fuzzy magic than anything scientific or logical, really. Here we are. Go on, try out some of the new features. For the Stanley Parable 2, I asked myself, what do players really want? And of course, the first and most obvious answer is that they want to be individually recognized and validated as people. So with that in mind, my first addition to the game is... Sorry, I should have clarified. Right now, the button only says the name Jim. But of course, in the final game, this button will say your name, whatever name that is. Here, let's have you role-play as Jim to really simulate the full experience of this feature. Just play along. I promise you'll love it. Okay, here we go. Let's take a deep breath, clear your mind, forget whoever you are, and simply become a person named Jim. I want you to imagine yourself living as Jim, sleeping and waking as Jim, falling in love and being heartbroken as Jim, seizing all of the... Whoa, hold on. I wasn't finished setting up the backstory. If you don't properly roleplay as Jim, then you'll never understand the impact of this button. Otherwise, it's just a stupid button that says somebody else's name. Okay, we're doing it again, and this time let me finish first. Now, allow yourself to become Jim. Imagine yourself driving to work as Jim, playing frisbee on the weekends as Jim, staying up all night for a popcorn and horror movie sleepover as Jim, developing a crippling substance addiction as Jim, rediscovering yourself through fringe religious groups as Jim, and finally dying a slow death at an old age surrounded by members of your cult as Jim. Do you feel it in your soul? Are you really, truly Jim right now? If so, then please step forward and press the button.
ジムになりきってボタンを押すってことか。
Yes, you see? What a thrill, what a rush. That was you. The button described you. Do it again, do it again.
よくわかんない。なんだこれ。
It hits even harder the second time. If this were the only new feature in the Stanley Parable 2, it would still be worth the money. Let's take a break from the Jim button. I'm too emotionally drained from all of this personal validation. Whoa there, cowboy. Sometimes a person can be too much Jim. I'm putting the Jim button away. Otherwise, soon you'll start to lose all sense of who you actually are.
なくなった。なくなったよ、完全にジムが。バックかな。ジムボタンなくなっちゃったよ。あったのに。トライトヒアと書いてる。何だったの一体。よくわかんない。他に見てない場所あったっけな。こことか入れないかな。無理か。
I suppose I could allow only people named Jim to play the Stanley Parable 2. That would actually save me the work of finishing this feature.
いいね、なんか。 入ったからか。
Okay, I'll be honest, I haven't yet decided on this one. I think that in the new version, the office could use a bit of decoration, like balloons. But I'm undecided on Get Well Someday and Happy 12th Birthday. Which would you go with?
飾り付けもできる。いいけど、どうやって出るんだろう。これ。うわ。なにこれ。
You know, sometimes when you solicit another person's opinion, it makes you realize that you knew which one you actually really wanted all along. Get well someday it is.
おー、すげえ。こっちも押していいんかな。無理か。癖強いな、なんか。
Oh, actually, maybe I should have gone with... No, I've made my decision, we're moving on.
あ、これあれじゃないか。
Let's bring the jump circle back for Stanley Parable 2 as well. Oh, wait. You already spent all your jumps the first time we saw the jump circle. Oh, well. I suppose it can just be a nice decorative piece then.
何これ。なんだよこれ。全然できねえ。でも楽しいな、これ。普通に楽しいな。これ見て回るだけでも。ジムボタンだけは意味不明だったけど。あれか、バケツって。なんか言ってたよね、バケツって。
A common complaint of the Stanley Parable was that it was confusing and paradoxical, that it engendered a chaotic sense of reckless despair in those who played it. Well, I'm happy to say that after much consideration, I've engineered a clever solution to this fundamental problem with the game. It's the Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket. You see, Stanley, anytime you're holding the bucket, a sense of calm and ease will fill your mind and your heart. It's true. As long as you hold on to the bucket, the many disorienting contradictions of the Stanley Parable will feel perfectly normal and perhaps even comforting.
バケツが降りてきたよ。
You may even come to long for the gentle embrace of jarring cognitive dissonance while the bucket is in your arms. And to be honest, it's a much more convenient solution for me than actually redesigning the game to be less uncomfortable. Can you imagine what a pain in the ass that would be? Yes, the bucket is the perfect solution.
これが
Give it a try.
何どうした？
Can you feel it? The glow of comfort, even in the face of crushing despair, must already be sweeping through your body. And in fact, can I say that I do believe the bucket lends you an air of charisma as well? I think that just holding it has made you the slightest bit more attractive as a person.
しかもカリスマ性？
Seem to go on and on, don't they?
このバケツが
All this and more await you in the Stanley Parable 2.
何したらいいのこのバケツで。恥ずかしいんだけど普通に。ぶっかけんのかなこれ。
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now, in his darkest of hours, did the bucket's warmth and guiding light pierce the dark clouds of confusion and chaos. It would be with him always. The bucket would, and he knew it. The two of them were inseparable. At this point, Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection he shared with the bucket that he didn't notice the keypad behind the boss's desk. Nor in his bliss of simply being near the bucket did he have any notion that the pin number for the keypad was 2845.
あ、そこは2845なんだ。あ、間違えた。そこはこれなんだ。
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs, trying to input anything, but Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation. Found one of them. One of the miniature Stanley figurines. Remember, no reward for collecting all of these, only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done. You can't buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I've tried. So, I implore you to savor each and every moment you come across one of these beautiful figurines. The elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine.
バケツが守ってくれるんだ。
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
行ってみるか。
The lights rose on an enormous room with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves. Jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like blueprints. Had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears. Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring us that everything would be fine.
バケツが鳴く。
Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind.
爆弾は止められるのかな。
Into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control, never! He squeezed the bucket tighter, his one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket. But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. He and the bucket would dismantle the controls for good. Two best friends, Stanley and the bucket, up against the world. They high-fived in a really cool way, and the bucket made a sassy comment about taking down the system. When at last they came to the source of the room's power, Stanley and the bucket knew it was their obligation to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for. Stanley and the bucket waited in blackness. Was it over? Yes, they had done it. Stanley and the bucket had defeated their greatest and darkest enemy, freed themselves from the tyrannical grip of the evil mind control machine. Freedom was now mere moments away. Excitedly, the two of them began to discuss the kind of life they wanted to live once they stepped through this massive door. The bucket wanted to learn to roller skate. Stanley wanted to sneeze in every country on Earth. Both of them wanted to begin watching a movie, any movie, but then stop it halfway through and begin watching it in reverse from the end. True, it was a simple life they envisioned, but it was one they'd lived together, with one another to lean on, to trust, to support. What? Wait. What was happening? Why had the door stopped? Was Stanley and the bucket not about to be freed?
あれ
Unbearable silence filled the room, lingering in uncertainty, until finally the truth hit Stanley square in the face. This building did not want the bucket to leave. Even the facility itself recognized the incredible calming presence of the bucket, needed the soothing warmth of the bucket. The good were immense.
あ、やばい、閉められる。怖い怖い怖い。
No. Stanley can't leave this place. Not while he has such a precious bucket in his arms. Not while this building has anything to say about it. Stanley realized he would never again leave this very room. But at least he has the bucket. To be trapped eternally in darkness isn't really